Hey everyone, I am coming at you again with an old viewer request that I'm finally getting to. This one was about something I'd brought up in a video last year where I talked about how, in terms of living in a patriarchal society, women's murders I see as a form of blood sacrifice in order to perpetuate the society. And I'm going to talk to you kind of what I mean by that because somebody was pretty intrigued by that and wanted to know more. So, what I mean by that is, I mean a couple different things because I see life not just on one plane. I'm a politically speaking and philosophically speaking, I have pretty materialist tendencies. So when I'm talking about this, it's a metaphor many times for just the way in which violence against women and the brutality that's inflicted against women is used as a form of social control against all other women. So I'm going to talk about that first, and then I will get kind of into the metaphysical aspects of it as a person who also has that side to them. So basically, in terms of speaking that way as a metaphor, it's important to understand, I think, that a big, or I guess a big part of radical feminist understanding, and one thing that I really took from it and took to heart, and part of what kind of latched me onto this philosophy so strongly, was the way it focuses on male violence as a form of social control. Because it's not just these structures in place like the state or workplaces or even the family structure that are forms of extraction. Really, male violence is used to control women all over the world. And it's one thing that is really ignored in most other forms of feminism. They may touch on it, but they don't talk about how men specifically use violence to control women. And a big part of that, they don't even have to oftentimes strike us, or strike women, or kill you to control you. It's as simple as putting the fear in you. And this is why, in this patriarchal culture, you see like really gruesome murders of women reported on specifically. Um, you have many unsolved cases of murders of women that are considered, you know, just lower class women, women who have less status in society. A perfect example of this, I'm going to give a couple examples, obviously, is the missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada. This is also a problem in the US. We don't really have a fucking name for it, but femicide against Indigenous women is a problem in the US. And also the femicide in specifically Juarez in Mexico. These are perfect examples of mass killings of women that are just ignored or under investigated and clearly have ties to very powerful people. And it's allowed to go on because these women have less status. You're talking Indigenous, often like factory worker women or women who don't even like work, or women who are in the sex trade. So society has just decided that these women are disposable and their blood therefore can be spilled. And there's that. That fear of being like, just going out of your home and being killed keeps women in control. There are many women I talk to who won't leave the house after dark. Even I'm wary about going out late at night. I used to not be so much when I was younger, but since I became disabled, I have to be a lot more careful and mindful about my surroundings. I was always vulnerable as a woman, but now even more so. So, women are in effect curfewed. They're controlled in that way. Many women just don't go out at certain hours. Many women, won't go in certain areas, won't walk in certain areas. Many women are afraid. They are afraid of murders of strange men. And so the way in which this is sensationalized in the culture does have an effect on women. There's also the effects of like brutal pornography having the same effect. I mean, it isn't just killing, but ultimately, these women who are murdered by men, and I'm specifically talking about right now, I'm talking about women murdered by men not in their own families. And I will get to that in a minute because overwhelmingly speaking, women are at most risk from men in their own families, either their partners, lovers, or men who are in their families. And that's the big taboo thing that isn't discussed. And as a radical feminist, I think that should be discussed really in depth, because the family itself is a system where, because women are property in it, rapes are under investigated, under reported. They are not considered to be actual crimes, and obviously violence and killing of women takes place exponentially. So yeah, women are controlled often by fear of strange men violating them. So women restrict their actions a lot of the time. And you can say, a lot of women who, don't live that way or don't care about this stuff, or they just go out anyway, will say, well, I'm a woman and I'm not afraid. I'm like, okay, good for you. And I don't think you should limit yourself in terms of your life, but many women do. And that's the point. It's not so much the fact that the fear affects every single woman. It's just that the fear is there present in many women. So that's the thing. And that fear is part of what drives patriarchy. Now, secondly, we're going to talk about within the family structure. I've said this before in other videos, and, many women have said it more articulately than me. But the number one way, or I shouldn't say this, not the number one way, sorry. You are more likely to be killed by a male intimate, a man that you either have had a relationship with or that is in your family. So, speaking on that, one of the, or there are mass shootings in the U.S. every day that are unreported as well. And these are family killings where men kill their whole families and then themselves usually. This happens every single day in the U.S. and in other parts of the world, but in the U.S. we have a gun culture, so men have access to guns. And when you have a situation of domestic violence and access to guns, it is far more likely that the victim is going to end up dead. So, this phenomenon of men killing their entire families is, I feel, as well, another example of this. That fear as well keeps women consistently looking for a good man, looking for a man who's going to provide well for them, women who are interested in men, which is unfortunately the majority of women. So, the familial structure, which we all, have either been born into, although some of us haven't, I shouldn't say that. The familiar structure, which, impacts our lives, whether we have one or not, is a trap for women. And I'm going to talk about this more in an upcoming video that I'm going to do about socialism and feminism, because I had a request from another viewer. And can I just say, I love your requests. I love that people are asking me about these things and I actually can talk about them. Because honestly, it's great. It's a great way to get video material. And it's just, I feel like these videos are just so much better because they're more personal in a way. So, side note, love your requests. I have so many good ideas from you, and it just also feeds this community thing that I think hopefully we're building here. So yeah, the murders of entire families of women, the murders of little girls, all of these things contribute to a basic fear that all women live in. So I'm talking specifically about the material plane here right now. These deaths serve a purpose, and that purpose is to perpetuate patriarchy. That purpose is to perpetuate male control and male dominance. And it's terrifying enough on that level. But now I'm going to speak to you as a witch. And I'm going to tell you that it's deeper than just that. The mass murders of women that take place, the bloodletting, these are sacrifices to patriarchal gods, patriarchal entities. Like, I don't know how else to put it to you other than that. And the thing is, whether you believe in this stuff or not doesn't really matter, because people are influenced by this, whether they believe in it or not. And a lot of people do believe in it. And the problem is a lot of men believe in it. And a lot of men have sacrificed masses of women in order to appease their patriarchal male gods. I mean, a perfect example is the witch murders. But our population has grown exponentially, and women are killed every year en masse. Like, you really need to stop and think about this. Like, are women still being murdered en masse? Yes. Maybe the ratios are different now, but our population is large enough to keep the specifically murder of females very high. So I think it's important to recognize that. And for any men's rights types who would come in and say, well, men are murdered at much higher rates. Yes, they are. Men are murdered at much higher rates by other men. So again, violence is this type of violence is specifically a male problem. And while women can commit acts of violence, and they do, the rates are just, they're not anywhere near the same. Like, it's comparing, I don't even want to say apples and oranges because they're both fruit. It's like comparing bread and water. It's fucking very different. And I think that needs to be recognized and acknowledged, that male violence specifically is a male problem. And I don't just think it's a result of socialization, because male animals are violent as well. And in many species, females take extra precaution to keep them away from the main herd. So whatever there. But anyway, we are humans living in patriarchy where we have to interact with the opposite sex unless we take drastic steps in our lives to mitigate that. So, in terms of the blood spilling of women and the feeding of these male patriarchal gods, spirits, whatever you want to call them, I'm specifically referring to, we in the West live under predominantly Judeo-Christian gods. These are the ones that, there's a church on every corner near my home. That's a patriarchal god they're all worshiping, it's everywhere. That god is a violent god. That god is a sadistic god. That god is a patriarchal god. And he requires, in the holy books, blood sacrifices. And since we aren't ritualistically killing animals anymore, it makes sense that the expendable lives would be the female ones, because the Christian, specifically religion, is very much based on misogyny and on devaluing females. I mean, they took the female aspect of spiritual life completely out of their religion, especially the fucking Protestants, which are mainly around. At least in the parts of the U.S. that I've been in, the Catholics aren't as dominant. So it's actually scary. These influences are powerful in our culture. And the Catholics too, let's not even get into their bloodbath fucking freaky shit. I mean, they could do a whole video about the pedophilia and the repression and the violence that church has inflicted. But specifically, I have more experience with the Protestants. So I just want you to like think very clearly about the evil in the world. Patriarchal religion is an evil. The Christian religion is an evil. And you need to be very wary about interacting with Christians because they are full of demons. I just want to say that. And actually, let me get into this topic because this is something I wanted to talk about as well. I've noticed something. There's a phenomenon that happens when people begin to, as they call it, activate in the New Age circles. I don't know if there's a better term for that, but let's just say activate. As you become more conscious, as you begin to drop illusions and begin to see things more clearly, that's often when you're attacked. That's often when like these forces come out of the woodwork. So let me just explain this to you. If you are being persecuted for seeing things as they actually are, and you are being trashed, you are being hounded, you are being like just subjected to the most vile gaslighting, and they work in a very, very bizarre way. An example of this is, for example, my ex, who is someone into Buddhism, which I have problems with as well. But so she decided to take a fast, which I was supportive of because fasting is good for spiritual health and physical health. And actually it was really good for her. But anyway, she decided to post about this in a Buddhist group she was in. Just say, I'm fasting. I'm having a really, really awesome experience. You know, it helps get some stuff going in her, for her spiritually. And she was immediately attacked by all of these white Western Buddhist men who were, they actually called her a narcissist, just the most insane things. And this is what I'm saying this to you because this happens not just within spiritual things. There are many ways to be activated and aware and to have your consciousness raised. You know, consciousness raising isn't just a political or philosophical or spiritual thing. It happens on multiple levels. So anywhere you have your consciousness raised, those who are programmed and those who are stuck in the unconscious traps, those who are stuck in whatever system, will try to shut you down. And this happens within feminism. For example, when I began doing videos against pornography, the insane backlash against me, the insane ways in which I was being bullied, harassed, targeted, these people, for lack of a better term, and you can think of this philosophically or spiritually, however you look at it, because I think it works as a metaphor and it works as a real thing. We're full of demons. These people are full of demons and wanted to shut down the one activating, because when you activate, when you raise your consciousness, other people are affected by it. You can't raise your consciousness and not affect those around you. And if you're somebody with a platform raising your consciousness, well, you are fucking, whoo, you are saying some dangerous shit. You need to be stopped. So I want you to remember that if you're watching this and you start talking about things and you sound crazy and stuff, and or people are like coming at you, giving you shit, if you're being trashed by people, and this is the thing, it'll happen from people who you thought were in your own community, people who you thought were on the same side as you. Like if you're becoming more aware, more conscious, more focused, you're seeing things more clearly, you will be attacked and you will be, people will try to bring you down. And the thing is, they want to bring you down to their level, but you cannot do that. Which, if you're truly activated, aware, conscious, you're fine. But it is a difficult experience and it's painful and it's troubling because you see just how many people are full of demons, and demons can be, and I'm not saying this to insult demons, because if anybody's who's ever evoked or talked to demons, they're not that bad. But when I say this, I mean they're stuck in, I'm talking about demons in a very, some of them are bad though. I mean, some of them are bad. I'm talking about they're stuck in ways of being that are not conscious, that are unhealthy. They are stuck in traps. And you just don't know when somebody's stuff is going to come out. And you know it's coming out because they are not engaging with you in a way that is truthful or honest or fair. They are playing dirty, they're fighting, they're getting nasty. So this is why I say when you're being trashed, when you're getting any of that, get away from it. Just get away. Don't engage. Because, I mean, you need to protect yourself from that kind of thing, especially if you've got a higher consciousness. So, I mean, it's just, you got to protect your vibration. I don't know how else to say it. I'm sounding very new agey here. I don't like talking like that, but it's the best way I can think about it. You need to protect yourself. You need to protect your consciousness. You need to protect your vibration. And you need to honor that within you that is seeing things clearer. So, yeah. In terms of the whole, back to the whole topic of the blood sacrifice, female blood is different than male blood. It has a different quality, and patriarchy itself is a very necrophilic world view, not worldview. It's a very necrophilic thing. Patriarchy hates your aliveness. It hates your awareness, your wokeness, it does not want you to be joyful. It does not want you to be happy. It does not want you to be. It wants you to minimize yourself. And once you start to stop minimizing yourself, especially as a female, once you stop minimizing yourself for others, once you stop shrinking yourself, when you start to fully exist and actually pursue joy, and not just joy or happiness, because that's very patriarchal too. I mean, that whole, like, this is what you must have to have a fulfilled life is nonsense. When you start to pursue your own fucking will, like, that is what is needed to be shut down. So we are kept in fear through male violence. We are kept in fear through these insane murders. And the patriarchal God feeds on female death. So this is why we must always blaspheme against the Judeo-Christian belief system. We must always call it out for what it is. And we must always protect our consciousness and our awareness and understand that, like, we can talk about these things metaphorically. We can talk about them in depth spiritually and really believe every word that we're saying. But it doesn't really matter because the effect is the same. You know, there are different levels that patriarchy works at. It doesn't just attack you physically. It attacks you spiritually, mentally. You have to be aware and know how to guard and protect yourself on all those fronts. And honestly, sometimes there's nothing you can do because it's much stronger than us a lot of the time. At least it feels like it. You know, women die every day. Women are killed every day by patriarchy. And there are many ways to do it. So, anyway, I hope that explains what I was kind of talking about. And I would like to thank you for listening to this and going into some of the stuff I wanted to talk about with this. I know it's kind of deep stuff and it can get kind of like weird, but it's honestly, it's the only thing I can think to say. I mean, this is just the reality we're living in. Female liveliness and life is attacked because it is life, and patriarchy seeks to destroy life. So we must, as feminists, feminist-minded people, females in this world, we must hold on to that life and we must protect it and we must just exist, you know, in spite of it. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like my video, comment, subscribe, share, and get in touch with me on other platforms in the low bar. And I will see you all soon with another video. Thanks. Bye.